Shane's here now, so we do have our quorum.
You do have a quorum now,
So,
Martha. So
okay. Cool, thank you. So, welcome to the Gordon Burnell Governance Council regular meeting on September 18th, 2025. It is 4:03 p.m. and I would like to see,
Martha,
is
you
there a
just said
motion?
September 18th. It's October.
Thank you. Yeah, we didn't change that on the agenda, so apologies. I was just reading off the agenda.
Yeah.
It didn't even occur to me. It is October 16th. Thank you, Diane.
Ours today's got the right date.
I
Yeah.
actually had the wrong agenda up. I had September, so my apologies. Let me try this again to get our documents up. I am sorry. Let me do it a different way.
Yeah, thank you for all those who caught that, because I was not even processing. I was just plain reading.
Didn't catch what I was reading too.
All right, but do I have a motion to call today's October 16th, 2025 Gordon Burnell Governance Council meeting to order?
I motion to call our October 16th meeting to order.
Thank you,
Second.
Jody. And thank you for the second, Deb. Do I have all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have called our meeting to order today. And we're going to do a quick roll call introductions. My name is Martha Hughes, and I am the Governing Council President. And I will pass it off to Beth and Deb.
Thanks, Martha. My name is Beth Dorado, and I'm Gordon Burnell Charter Schools Director.
My name is Deb DeTore, and I'm a member of the Gordon Burnell Governance Council.
I'm Erica Rivas, and I am taking notes.
I'm Chris Kazan. I'm the principal at Gordon Burnell's MDC campus.
I'm Diane Hensley, and I'm the assistant business manager.
Charmaine Carter here, part of Gordon Burnell Charter School Board.
Jody Brochet is part of the school board as well.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Our next item is to approve today's agenda. So we do have the right one up now, and we can take a quick look at that. Were there any comments or questions on the agenda?
No comments or questions. Looks good.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda for today?
I motion to approve the agenda for today.
Thank you, Charmaine. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jody. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have approved today's agenda. Next, we're going to take a look at our minutes from our last meeting. That one was September 18th. Were there any comments, questions, or corrections for our minutes from last month? All right. Do I have a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes?
I motion to approve the September 18th meeting minutes.
Thank you, Jody. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Nope, we tied.
We'll say Charmaine and then all in favor.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We have approved last month's meeting minutes. And then it doesn't look like we have any guests here today for public comment. And there are no past business discussion items. Beth, are there any staff members of the month to introduce?
I did not get to that this week. I
That's okay.
apologize. I usually, when I'm preparing the agenda and such, reach out to a staff member, and I kept saying, oh, I need to do that. So we will return to, we still have several staff members the board hasn't met yet, and so we'll return to that next month, and I totally spaced it. So,
No worries at all. Okay. Yeah, and so then we'll go ahead and pass it over to Sammy and Diane for the finance review.
Thank you, Martha. So I will go ahead and share my screen. We have a pretty quick finance packet this month. We don't have any bars. Looking at some of our graphs, just making sure that we're not over budget anywhere. You'll see we have some high percentages, which is great, but nothing over budget here. Looking at our current year revenue, budget revenue, you'll see we are getting revenue in, which means that our RFRs are coming in. It's our food service, federal flow through, local grants, and then state direct. And then you'll see, of course, our current revenue that's our highest is always going to be our SEG funding. Looking at our yearly expenditure comparison by month, no large change here. Pretty consistent. We always like to look at our function code change here. So this is going to show how much money we're spending in instruction and instructional support. We're at 63.71%, which is super solid for charter school. It looks great. Again, anytime we have a large expense somewhere else, it will skew those numbers like it has the last few years. And so we will likely see this number skewed again once we start our elevator project at the school. So just be on the lookout for that change. But this is nice to see kind of where we're sitting without those random expenses skewing our numbers. So this is great. Of course, up here, our object code change, it's always going to be compensation and benefits. It's always going to be our highest percentage. Just it costs money to have staff. So that's always going to be our highest. Looking at our monthly cash balance, our liquidity, we're sitting at about a 6.35, which is where we wanted to be at this point. We've been working, to spend on what we've needed, do additional LPA payments, things like that. And so we are staying very consistent right now with this 6.35. It will fluctuate as we do the elevator project, as we, put that money forward and then waiting for it to come back in from our requests for reimbursement. So you will see this fluctuate as we start that project, but we're staying very consistent, and a 6.35 is great. That's, above even what we recommend. So the school looks great. Looking at our budget analysis, so this is just a more detailed breakout of our funds, looking at our budget, actuals, encumbrance, and balance. The only ones that are negative right now is our Ed Fellows. It's just slightly over encumbered by $200, so that will be fixed. Looking at our city and county grants, we are still waiting on another award letter for a second part of our award. And so as soon as we get that, this will also be corrected. And then lease assistance, we're waiting for our application to be approved. They usually get approved, December, January time, and then we'll get the budget authority for those. Any questions on any of these? No? All right. Looking at our checklisting report, nothing new really. The only thing I wanted to point out was this Clifton Larson Allen. This is our auditors. And so we did make a payment to them for $18,000. Other than that, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Anyone have any questions on any of these checks? No? Then we had our payroll at the bottom. All righty. I'm going to skip through our detailed reports here. Our account summaries, looking at all of our account codes, expenditures, revenue. And then we have our balance sheet report, our statement of revenues, expenditures, and change in fund balance. And then here is our bank reconciliation. It was reviewed, it just needs to be stamped, but everything does tie out. We have zero difference here. And then I always like to look at our outstanding listing. And here you'll see very minimal. We just have one check from 6:30 that we already have a plan that we're gonna get that corrected, but the rest you'll see are all from September. And then here we do tie out to our 9:30 bank statement. Any questions on anything? Like I said, it's pretty quick finance packet this month.
Yeah, we went over a few details in the finance meeting and there's nothing of concern that came up. Again, the audit committee is underway because we're still actively in audit and we'll have kind of our exit audit interview next week on Tuesday. So that process is almost done, just so that the board knows that, you know, that's kind of coming to an end. And then we won't get the final information out to the board until next spring sometime. And there's usually quite a bit of a lag. So just so you know, it's not something that we can kind of share outside the auditing committee until sometime in the spring.
Mhm.
Any other finance related questions or things that folks are thinking of? All right, well, I think that is probably all. We have a few action items related to finance that we can go ahead and take care of, and then our finance folks will have the rest of their evening. So the first is the approval of accounts and payroll vouchers. Do I have a motion to approve accounts and payroll vouchers?
I'll move to approve the accounts and payroll vouchers.
Thank you, Deb. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Jody. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, we have approved the accounts and payroll vouchers. The next is, do I have a motion to approve the budget adjustment requests?
And we made
We
this
didn't have-
agenda before the finance packet came out, so we didn't have any budget adjustment requests.
Oh, that's very
I don't
true.
know-
Yeah.
I don't know what we do about that action item, if it needs to, I don't know. I'm kind of lost.
I guess we can just say we'll motion to table, seeing as there are none this month, we will just table approval of budget adjustment requests till next month. Do I have a motion to table the bars for this month?
I motion to table the bars for this month.
Thank you, Charmaine. Do I have a second?
I'll second to table the bars until next month.
Thank you, Jody, and all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have tabled the bars till next month when perhaps we will have some. All right. Well, thank you to our finance team. I know that the end is in sight. Thank you for all of your hard work and auditing season. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Thanks,
Good
Annie.
night.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. All right. Well, we'll go ahead then and move forward to Beth's director's report, because then it goes over some of the compliance policy and other parts of our agenda.
Thanks, Martha. I never got back to a staff member of the month, so I apologize again for that. We did want to talk briefly, and I know it's also on Martha's section of the agenda about board training, but I did kind of highlight some of the decisions that were made. Not everyone was available on the 14th, so we passed on that opportunity, but we still have the opportunity to plan something together, and maybe with other schools as well. They're looking to do another version of that next semester because there is interest. Just a kind of looking forward and also wanting to have some discussion with you all. We do have budgetary authority for the money that we raised for our elevator and for our development of the outdoor learning space. And I just wanted to give an update. And because that is well over the threshold of $60,000, it also requires board input and eventually board approval. So hopeful to initiate kind of a conversation and then have that lead to any discussion. there are several options for moving forward. One is to put out the work to an RFP, and then have vendors bid, and then manage that contract internally. We can also go through one of the procurement agencies like CES or ACES, who have already put out RFPs to construction management companies, and then kind of help us take away that sometimes very cumbersome step. And it would still leave me managing the vendor. And then the option that I'm kind of leaning towards, and I want to certainly have some more discussion around though, is another amendment to our LPA, which would mean that our relationship with Steve Nakamura at Rachel Matthews as a developer and a contract manager would continue. We would possibly extend the life of that agreement slightly. But there wouldn't be a large amount that we need to finance because we have most, if not all, of the funding already under our budgetary authority. So that decision is more about the experience that we've had with that developer, in terms of the work that he puts into managing a project. And I know, you know, my predecessor worked with him to build our high school. I worked with him to build the CDC. I decided to kind of test the waters, and I did some work, basic things. We laid some gravel and did some kind of just leveling and preparing of the site next door. And I went through CES and managed as Sunland Asphalt. Lovely company, but it was a reminder of how much work goes into it when you don't have a developer doing it for you. So, for example, I still had to file wage, not certifications, something with Workforce Solutions. I had to wage deferments. There was different platforms I had to lean into. I had to participate in some of the zoning and permitting pieces. And so, you know, my preference, and having talked very briefly with Chris about it, is to look at an LPA amendment, and then let Rachel Matthews take the lead on the project. You know, there is a cost to that. He does get a developer's fee out of it, but there's a cost to working with the other vendors as well. And my experience with him is that he really takes the pressure off. His niche is building things for charter leaders. It's what he does. And so certainly wanting to plant the seed for you all, that you know, an upcoming LPA amendment would be something, if we went that way, that the lawyer would be involved in, again, just because of the cost. We're talking about $750,000. And so again, we raised it and we have it. And so, you know, I just want to make sure that I'm not making that decision in a vacuum. And if you have any questions or we want to have more discussion, I'm certainly could be convinced that other options are better for a variety of reasons, but I'm settling right now towards an LPA amendment. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about that or any questions, or again, I'll bring forth some more information about it kind of monthly until we make a decision and move forward.
My only question, Beth, was, do we have to put it out for an RFP? Are we required by law to have somebody to take bids to have it done?
What procurement, what is required by law is it either goes out to an RFP or through one of the procurement agencies like CES or ACES, because they do that RFP piece up front. And so that's how I interacted with Sunland Asphalt. I didn't put that out to RFP. It cost about $80,000. So that was over the threshold. We did it through CES, so there were already a contracted vendor. But again, for as small as that little project was, it was a tremendous amount of work, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. And I know that Steve, part of his fee is doing all of that, red tape stuff.
So what I'm hearing you tell me is that if we just amend what we already have, we don't have to put the whole project out for people to bid on to see who comes in and then take the cheapest.
So with the LPA route, what we're not paying for it, he is.
Mhm.
And then our agreement with him is that we're paying him back. So technically, this is still his property.
Got it.
And so it's a way, in all transparency, you know, to be compliant with procurement regulation by not procuring the services ourselves, but instead coming to an agreement with the current co-owner of the property that he will make the improvements to the property, and then we pay him back through a large balloon payment, like a down payment, and then through the payments that we're already making to him.
Thank you, because I personally, and we'll keep talking about it, but I don't have to manage it, so I think I will support you in whatever you decide would make your life doable, because it's a big project. I just was worried when I read this, did we have to put it out for proposal?
We can put it
No,
out,
no, I
that's
just
one
wanted
option, but we don't have to.
I thought we had to, and then take the lowest or whatever, so if we don't have to, I thank you for clearing.
Not if we choose some of these other options.
Mhm.
If we wanted to just take open bids or go with someone who is not already a vendor with one of the either ACES or CES, or there are other procurement organizations as well. Those are not the only two, those are just the two largest in New Mexico. But like we pay some of our other large contracts through procurement agencies, our coaching that we're doing for instructional staff is over the threshold. And we're using a procurement agency. I'm lacking the right noun for what you really call them, procurement organizations out of Texas, and that's allowable.
Okay.
And then similarly with our tech out at the jail through Nucleus and those institution safe tablets, we didn't put that out to RFP because we go through TIPS, which is a national procurement agency that helps so they put out the RFPs, and then collectively schools can contract with the vendors that go through that process.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was also curious, part of it is the original plans did include an option for an elevator. And so, Rachel Matthews is probably familiar with, what might have been planned in the past and how to move it forward this time. Is that correct, Beth?
Yes, there's also some savings to be had to use the same architect who already has, the previous site in CAD, right? As opposed to when you completely switch to a new partner, you're starting, from a ground zero in which they have to build out current site to then even, get permits to move forward. And so, yeah, there is some continuity in staying with a developer that already has a file. And a relationship with all of the parties for permit pulling and those types of things.
Any other questions about the LPA amendment? All right, well, thank you for letting us know this initial step, Beth, and keep us in the loop as you're continuing to look at decision making, and then we'll wait for the official discussion and vote.
Yep, appreciate that. Here's another ongoing discussion that I'm looking to engage in and invite you to be a thought partner with me. We are up for charter renewal, and we have a choice in terms of renewing our charter with Albuquerque Public Schools and becoming a district authorized charter, or continuing to be a district authorized charter. And then there's always an option at renewal to switch sides. And the other side is to be authorized by the PEC, the Public Education Commission, which is a state board that authorizes charter schools. And so in the state of New Mexico, there are two pathways for authorization: through the state or the PEC, or through the district where the charter geographically sits. We have always been an APS charter. There are intriguing reasons every single year schools that are up for renewal switch. There are APS schools that are bailing to the state, and there are state schools that are bailing to APS in every cycle. And so there are pros and cons. Jody joined me for part of a meeting today that the Public Charter Schools of New Mexico hosted for schools who are up for renewal next year, who are grappling with this decision. I really am interested in what's best for the school, and it's really hard to tell what that is. Some of the great things about staying with APS are we really know and understand what APS wants and expects. We have a good relationship with the department who oversees charter schools at APS. We do receive some supports from the district that we would lose. Some are meaningful. And then there are some cons to staying with APS. APS takes 2% of our budget to be our authorizer. And also manages all of our federal flow-through funds. So APS uses its formula to decide what part of their Title I, Title II, Title III awards we should get, what part of their IDEA B funds we should get. But they also do all the paperwork for those, which is pretty excessive. And so, you know, in the conversation today, there's a pro and a con and a battle back and forth. Oversight is different. The application is different. And the supports that are provided by either the PEC or APS are different. Some of the most recent concern is a growing interest by the APS board for charter schools to conform to their goals, for their charters to conform to their goals. And that concerns advocacy groups like PCSNM, because we are supposed to be autonomous and they're an authorizer. And so there's a lot of talk over that's overreach, not oversight. And so APS election is APS board election. Several board members are up for several seats are up for election this year, and that's one of the hot topics. They are platforming on how they will approach charter schools is one of the things that they're really talking about. And so if you're a state charter, you don't have to deal with your district's politics. But the PEC has also been very political and have gone through iterations of being very supportive and being very difficult for the charters that they authorize. And so I could go round and round and round. If I had to decide, if the decision was mine and mine alone, and I had to make it today, I would probably stay with APS for the one reason that they believe in our mission and they are happy with us leveraging our adult education program, which is half of the students that we serve. And so I don't know how PEC would feel about that. And I know that APS supports it. And so are there lots of other reasons to maybe leave APS? Kinda, but that staying true to our mission and serving students of all ages, I know APS supports that. And I know that, and not anytime soon will they likely stop supporting that. And so, and then I second guess, right? If that's the right decision. And again, schools switch sides every time some school is changing to the other one. So I don't know what thoughts or questions y'all have about that. It's a pretty big decision, and it's one that we probably need to make in the next couple months. And so I don't know what information or resources or other perspectives I can bring to the table. But it is a decision that the board should have a say and own and be okay with in the end.
Thank you, Beth. I just wanted to add that a week and a half ago, I attended the APS board committee that focuses on policy. And that was, Beth sent out that information to us because public charter schools of New Mexico were kind of letting people know, hey, take a look at this. It could affect, how charters and APS track their progress, how they have a relationship with APS. And so I sat in on that meeting, and what happened in the end was that they were proposing a policy change that would indicate that the charters do have to follow more closely the goals and guardrails that APS board has set up. And that's been something that actually our strategic committee has looked at as like an example of like strategic planning. And looking at that, several of the goals are around third grade reading and also like seventh grade math. And so things that don't really apply to our school as it is, so we don't really have to worry about trying to meet specific goals around those two areas. Another area was looking at staff support and professional development, which I think we do a really great job of. So that wasn't something that concerned me of trying to meet. Another was career exploration and engagement, which I think also our school does really well. And so there were several things around the goals and guardrails that it didn't make me too worried. Like, even if we were expected to fit a little bit more into their model, it wasn't something that I felt like we could, be at risk of not achieving. Obviously, we are always being critiqued on our 4 and 6 year graduation rates. That's something that's not going to change. And that's something that we just have to continue telling the story about, and like our unique charter's mission. There were several charters that came on that did talk about that concern of like, well, APS sets forth, or they authorize charters, but they're not also managing the day-to-day or, particular outcomes of the charters. So there is still that question of like overreach. What had happened, they in their committee had a lot of questions as well. There were differing opinions, so they weren't of one particular mind on a policy change. And they also agreed that the document that they had updated was not the actual policy, but actually a list of procedures related to that policy. And so the end vote, it was kind of decided, okay, we're going to go back, do a little homework, figure out what is the actual policy. Does that need to be updated? I think they are kind of thinking, yeah, they are wanting to have a little bit more oversight and accountability on behalf of charters. And so that is the concern there of like, is there overreach, or what happens to like each of our particular missions and visions? But based on where they were at now, it didn't worry me in terms of like, oh, we should leave immediately, because they didn't have their policy together yet to vote on. They had lots of differing opinions on it. I'm not sure if they'll get that together to vote on even before, the induction of new members in January. So it really just depends. And even if they do, make some proposed changes, it didn't really concern me too much that we wouldn't still be able to fit into those. It might mean a little bit different tracking or a little bit more oversight. One of the things that they wanted to change with the policy was like meeting with board members of each of the charters quarterly, which would be a lot. And APS, like our charter contact, Joseph Escobedo, he was like, I don't even know if that's possible for, the board, APS board to meet with all the charters like quarterly. And they said quarterly or regularly. That was the wording as well. And so it's like, well, they're not really sticking to it. They're kind of giving themselves some leeway anyway. So that might be one of the most onerous changes, if it should happen. But anything else about that meeting or information, Beth, to add?
No, I really appreciate you attending, Martha, because I was unable. I sent out the information, but wasn't able to go myself. So I appreciate the perspective. And I do have felt supported over the last several years by APS in a variety of ways. There's challenges as well. But in some ways it feels like, why move to something, why fix it if it's not broken in some respects? And then not really understanding or knowing what's expected on the other side, or what level of education it will take to inform an entirely new body about our mission and get them on board to support it. We know that APS board members come to our graduations. We know we have great relationships with the division, with the department itself in APS. And so it just feels like a risk to throw away a good thing because it might be better. The grass is greener on the other side, or the grass is greener where you water it, right? Like, kind of so many metaphors I'm mixing, but it is a big decision, and one that will shape how we approach renewal, and one that will shape how we, strategically plan for the next 5 years, for the next charter.
Yeah, any other perspectives, if folks have their own outside perspective of interacting with New Mexico Public Education Committee and those charters?
I don't have additional perspectives. I mean, it was really good, hearing about where people were coming from. And I think that Beth did a great synopsis of what I heard, but then also beyond what I was able to hear. And it was great, with just providing like the background information to help us, really try to figure out like what we're going to do next. And so I think it's good. I think it's something for us to really think about what we're going to do next, and thinking about the dynamics within APS that are happening, and how those decisions within like the charter school division or that group would affect students is really important to think about. So this is good information to work with.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. Appreciate you going to that meeting this morning as well.
I'm curious if there's anything that I can send your way. I mean, I can certainly gather some information from like the APS website and the PEC website. But I don't know if that's helpful or something that is of interest to you all in terms of kind of, again, that background information. I think it's important to think about what the performance framework looks like. And so maybe that is something, because I'm very familiar with APSs. I'm curious and would like to get my hands on the rubric that PEC is using for their site visits and their oversight. And maybe that's a good next step, is to kind of send those out and we can look at them, side by side in terms of what is documented in terms of what they're looking for compliance. But I do know it's a completely different system.
Yeah, that would be a good first step, I think, Beth, because that's something that you mentioned as one of your main concerns of like how we'll be, judged basically differently depending on which we apply for a charter with. And I wonder if it would be helpful to kind of start like a running list of like pros and cons, just to kind of have them, next to each other for comparison. And if there are like differences in, the charter application process, what's expected of us. Obviously the documents around measuring progress, we'll have those to kind of look at. I don't know if that's something the Public Charter School of New Mexico Association already has kind of a list that helps compare that we could play off of, or maybe there would be a school committee who wouldn't mind spending a little bit of time putting that together. Because I don't want to necessarily say like, oh, Beth has to do all of this. But yeah, just so we can have something a little bit more concrete that kind of fleshes out APS versus PEC.
I've made myself a note to at least gather the performance frameworks from both authorizers and start a pro and con sheet that we can add to and discuss next time it comes up, which will
Okay.
kind of be an ongoing discussion again until we make a decision at this
Yep.
point.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering too if that affects like the strategic planning committee, because right now we're, planning the 5-year strategic plan to meet the MRI, support requirements. But I'm wondering, is that also required then for PEC or not? Or if it's just good to have regardless,
Yeah. Just, I think that's a great way to align, right, in terms of making sure that the plans that we're creating are all moving us in the same direction. Just in terms of the timeline, that's another thing that I want to clarify. If we renew with APS, then that application would be due October 1st of 2026. And it's certainly, both Chris Cazone and I are sitting on renewal committees for different schools this October for other APS charters who are renewing this year. And that's something that I like about what APS does. They have schools that need to renew the following year, sit on the committees and be evaluators for current year renewals. And so Chris Cazone is on the team for Mark Armijo, and I'm on the team for ACE Leadership High. And that's been really eye-opening. My assumption and kind of loose understanding is that the PEC timeline is similar, but I'm gonna make sure to confirm as well just when the PEC application is due. But we're looking, so backward planning, I certainly don't want to go into the summer with a blank slate. And so if I was to be really honest, I think it would be amazing if the board and the school are in consensus about which way to go as early as December or January, so that we can spend second semester diving into the applications, the needs assessment will lead into it. The strategic plan that you all are working will lead into it. And so that we're not saving it for the last, it's a stressful endeavor. And so I really don't want to put off too long the decision. I don't think, January or February messes with it too much. But if we're not decided by March or April, I think we're handicapping the efforts to be prepared to submit the application comfortably next fall. So just kind of setting the stage, and ideally the end of the semester, if not, then certainly within the first couple months of next semester, I think we should be confident that who we're going to reauthorize with, so that we can start digging into the details.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for those action items, Beth, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. All right, and we'll continue from there.
Yep, and so these are both, I do have 2 action items that are returners that we didn't get to last month, because last month's meeting was so packed. The first is an update to our high school pathway to graduation document. This is a document that you have seen before, and you will see again, because we will continuously improve and update this document as expectations change from PED and as things evolve here. So it starts with our graduate profile, which was a very interactive process and covers what our community believes students need to be successful when they graduate, and things that we're trying to connect our work to. This talks about the graduation requirements. There is a change here, and that is this capstone section. And this is something that we could revisit, and we may end up revisiting, sooner rather than later. But we are being required by PED to start fleshing out how we will comply to the new graduation requirements that were passed recently in the legislative session. And so this is going to change probably every quarter or semester until we're fully compliant. There's a grace period to comply with the new requirements, and I'm pretty sure I also linked them in here. Yep, there they are. So there is a new graduation manual, and over the next couple of years, we will have to make several changes to our how we graduate students to be compliant, but we're well within the timeline. And so this was HB 171, and specifically what this update is addressing is coursework requirements, page 6, a new requirement to have 2 units set by each local school board or governing body that meet department academic content and performance standards. So there's supposed to be sequential electives. There's supposed to be this idea that instead of there used to be 7.5 random electives, and now they're asking schools to identify a sequential 2 electives that support the mission or the vision or something that's important to the school. So this could be almost anything. Some schools are choosing language. Some schools are choosing, fine arts or something. Right now, we're settling on capstones, which is a project-based approach that students work with a community partner to do something that's meaningful to them. And so capstone 1 and capstone 2 are what we are suggesting. But there's going to be some other changes to our Pathway to Graduation guide as we continually adopt what we do to meet the new requirements within the timeline. And so that is a change in this Pathway to Graduation guide since the last time you guys updated it. And then the other change is in, I'm passing it, my apologies. The other change is in competency requirements. And so at Gordon Burnell, we require students to not only meet the number of courses that they need in every content area, but we also require them to pass an exit exam. That used to be a statewide requirement. Graduation competency was something that all graduates had to do, and the state has backed off of that. And it is no longer a requirement by the state level for students to demonstrate competency in all 5 areas. But to date, we've not followed suit. We have the autonomy to set our own graduation requirements above those of the state, and we've chosen to keep this exam, these competency requirements in place because so many of our students come with credits from other schools, but not skills. And because our credit acquisition is meant to be accelerated learning and credit recovery, and there's some flexibility sometimes in how credit can be awarded, we wanted to make sure that students are hitting competency benchmarks in all 5 areas. So we still have the competency requirements. And the other change to this document since the last time you approved it is an HSC subset. That was not on the last version. And so students can demonstrate competency, for example, in mathematics by passing a department approved course final exam doing a capstone, which it's been here and described previously. Most students take the WorkKeys Applied Math or Graphic Literacy test. That is actually where I push our students to demonstrate competency first, because we get college and credit readiness points for it too. It's one of the indicators in our VISTA score. And so we're not going to get better at the SAT proficiency necessarily, but I want us to get better in general in the places that we can. And so anytime we take the WorkKeys test and students get a 3 or above, we get credit in that category. So teachers are actually supposed to start with the WorkKeys assessment first, but they do have other options for students who may need them. What wasn't there before was this HEC subtest. And again, HSC is your high school equivalency test. So we see students sometimes who've attempted the GED, haven't passed all the sections, but have passed some sections. And we'd like to acknowledge if they've passed the HSC, then they've demonstrated competency. So the two changes in this document since the last time you've seen it is the addition of capstones as our consecutive to electives that we're going to be requiring students to do, and HSC subtests as one way to demonstrate competency in each of these sections. Other than that, this stays the same. The progression, the kind of guide on how things go, how students can earn some credit for these competency exams as well. Nothing else has changed besides those two pieces. So anybody have questions about that? Cool. It's a working document, so it'll come before the board as probably once or twice a year has kind of been the cadence as we fine tune and make sure that we're meeting the needs of both our compliance from the state and also what's best for students. And so that is an action item, but before we vote on it, we do have another action item, and this is it is a requirement that I share with you our DASH plan. And so I provided with you an overview of kind of an executive summary, if you will, that's a couple pages long, but I also linked for you the full report as it was submitted on the portal, which includes a lot more information, like who is on our core team. We have a very active core team. Chris Cazone actually leads the DASH team. They meet regularly, provide input, and help us monitor these goals. At this point, this has been approved by APS. It's been approved by PED, but it does require that you are aware and approve it as well of what our goals are. This is what I thought strategic planning was until someone was like, no, you need a 5-year strategic plan. And I was like, I was confused because it's been my understanding that this DASH plan really is our strategic plan year to year. And so we take it seriously. We've got a couple of goals. We have to kind of play along in some ways. Our summit, because we are an CSI-MRI school, again, we appear to be failing because of how they measure graduation rates and proficiency rates. Because we are a turnaround school, some of our goals are predetermined for us. And so our summative school-wide goals, we didn't get to write. We were given them. We have to try to raise our graduation rates and raise our proficiency scores on the measures that the state uses. What then starts to make it real is our benchmark school-wide goal statement is how we interpret what we're really doing that could possibly address that. And so if we want more students to graduate, then we want more students to have solid ILPs, individualized learning plans, and with solid goals on them. If we want more students to be successful in math and science and in English, then we want them to earn more core credits. And so the benchmark goal kind of breaks down then, what we're trying, the outcomes that we're tracking and trying to improve. And then it moves into a whole bunch of kind of root cause analysis that the team did to understand what the challenges are, and to really talk about why those challenges exist. This was a real process, and so we did the work to kind of understand what is facing us, and then we're left with some critical actions. And these are things that the leadership team, that the adults in the building can do differently to try to bring about those outcomes. So again, we want more students to be earning core credit. We want more students to be engaged with their individualized learning plans and meeting their individualized goals. And we want more students also to be engaged in real world opportunities through their capstone projects. And we want students to, especially our ELL students, to be showing growth that we know that's important in their language acquisition. So in terms of goals, we have to write a ELA goal, a math goal, a science goal, an English language learner goal, a graduation goal. And so, again, schools that are doing well according to the metrics of the state have a lot more autonomy, and schools who are in turnaround get a lot more guidance. And so this is rooted in the work with our core team, but it's also highly influenced by the reviewers and our coaches at the state level. And so there's a lot of work to kind of meet what they're looking for and also make it a real plan and goal that is meaningful to the school. And so critical action steps are things like getting better guiding documents in place to guide advisory, having some more oversight and some audits around ILP and advisory notes, making sure that we're identifying our ELL students and giving the professional development to staff members so that they understand the strategies that help improve language proficiency. It means focusing on directed learning experiences, getting our instructional staff coaching, improving our leadership team's ability to do observation and feedback coaching cycles, and understanding how we're supporting students on their individualized plans. And so this becomes a pretty comprehensive document. And I am proud to say that it is a document that we utilize and that Chris and his core team meet with about monthly, gather data on. It informs the professional development that we engage in, and it's a lot of work to get it approved. And we're at the very last stage where you guys have an opportunity to see it and to provide any feedback that you might have. And so that's our other discussion and action item. And our last one as well.
Thank you, Beth. Yeah, it's really exciting to see that all put together in a document, that you had a whole team working on it, and that can really help drive some of those outcomes for students. So it's something that I will definitely have the strategic planning committee look at as well and see how we will help, support primarily, leadership and staff in their pursuits of their goals, and see how that fits in. Any other questions on either the change to the graduation guide or the DASH annual and 90-day plans?
I have one question. If we take the GED and a kid passes that for math, then do they get credit for that towards our graduation? I couldn't understand that when I read what you had.
They get is a check mark under showing competency in math. So if I want to graduate, my requirements are twofold. Number one, I have to have 4 math credits on my transcript that are approved by PED. And number 2, I have to demonstrate competency in math. And so if I have passed the GED or the HiSET subtest in math, then I don't have to take the WorkKeys assessment. I don't have to demonstrate competency. Still have to have the courses. It doesn't wash away the requirement for credit.
Okay,
It is accepted as one of the demonstrations of competency in terms of demonstrating skill.
but it's not, it wouldn't be credit recovery.
And not the
Alright.
way that it's presented here.
Okay,
We've had a policy that, in the past, that when a student passes a subset of the GED or the high set, it counted as both the competency and one of the core credits. That was it was many years ago that was in place, and that concept didn't carry through to this current version. It is something that we discussed pretty briefly when the idea to bring it back as a competency assessment, and staff and leadership both felt that were involved in the conversation, both felt like if you've got the skills, then you can also get through the credits pretty quickly. And so
through the coursework.
through the coursework pretty quickly. And so and wanting to make sure, you know, our perspective on passing the GED, my perspective on passing the GED has shifted over the last couple of years since really engaging with our adult education program. It is a multiple choice test, and if you take it enough times, you can pass it with a lot of gaps in your foundational skills. And so while it shows overall a propensity to be competent in the area, teachers wanted to make sure that they were doing some shorter checks through the courses, that some of those really important skill gaps didn't exist.
Because didn't it say they could only take it 3 times or something before you give them? So I thought maybe that did away with the multiple choice issue. I don't know. I'm just was
Yeah.
curious about whether they could get credit for it.
You know, it's been a policy in the past, and one that instructional staff have undone because they wanted to make sure not just that there was a general broad knowledge, but that there was also you know, you can
Deep knowledge.
you know, a more focused skill set, right? And so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I also like the idea of it working for credit. I was outvoted.
I just think
To be completely transparent.
just because our graduation rate is our issue,
Yep.
then it looked to me like this was a way we could better achieve that.
I
It counted 2 ways.
certainly am down to bring it back to the departments and say, you know, the board had some questions, so thank you.
Deb had something, you don't have to use my name, but it's
But
okay.
someone on the board was curious why we don't still do that and re-engage with the conversation, because we weren't, when it was policy, we weren't saying they earned all their credits.
Right.
We were saying, well, you know, we'll give them credit for one. And that felt equitable at the time. So I'm happy to bring the conversation back to the table. Make another note. Gotta write things down or I don't remember these days.
I know.
All right. Any other questions or comments on either the graduation guide or Dash? All right, let's go ahead and move towards approving our last 2 action items then. Do I have a motion to approve the updated pathway to graduation guide?
I motion to approve the updated guide.
Thank you,
Hold on.
Jody. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Charmaine. Do I have any nays? Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
All right, we have approved the updated pathway to graduation guide. Do I have a motion to approve the Dash annual and 90-day plans?
I motion to approve the Dash annual and 90-day plans.
Thank you, Charmaine. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. Any nays? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have approved the Dash annual and 90-day plans. All right, and so moving along, we're gonna go into our board priorities, and part of our board priorities is sharing an announcement for today. We are very sad to share that Charmaine is deciding to leave the board a little bit short of her 5-year term, but we're very happy to support her in pursuing her personal, like, academic educational goals. So I'm going to pass it over to Charmaine to share a little bit more. She wanted to join us for the last meeting today. Thank you, Charmaine.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Martha and Beth, everybody here. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for teaching me a lot over the last few years. And it's been honorable to serve in a different capacity, to serve the community in a different capacity, and still those folks that I serve even in my workplace. And so I learned a lot, which is really good, and I can appreciate that very much. I started school back up again, and so I have a full plate, and I've put that off for many, many years, and I reached a point of I'm eligible to retire, and so I really need to prepare for the next steps and the next chapter, and I think it involves school. So, but if you all ever need a backup plan or ad hoc or any other creative solutions, I'm still here and I'm still willing to be supportive of the school and you guys. So just remember, I'm kind of always in the back pocket, whatever proper way I can be of help for you all.
Oh, good luck, Charmaine.
Congratulations on going back to school. That's a big decision and a sacrifice as well. So really appreciate it.
Yes, it's intimidating. It's tough, getting back into that student life, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. So
We'll miss you.
likewise, I will miss you guys. Thank you.
It'll definitely be worth it. And Charmaine, I've learned so much from you, just thinking about all the different perspectives that you bring, and it's great. And I wish you the best.
Thank you,
Everything.
Jody. Thank you. I hope some of my colleagues reach out to Martha. I think it was very eye-opening for me. It's very important, I think, even for our profession to stay connected in some way with people as far into their journey as possible, just to be supportive, even if it's through education. We start with them in not so great circumstances, but this is an opportunity that means it doesn't always have to end that way. And I've been grateful to be able to be part of that.
Yeah, thank you again so much, Charmaine. We have also learned so much from your particular expertise, your background, all of the questions and perspectives that you've shared with the board. And yes, we're very excited about your next step. So please, keep in touch and let us know how you're doing. And if you have an upcoming graduation, let us know so that we can also support you. It's always fun when you're doing education related things and then somebody decides to go back and pursue it themselves. So
Definitely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Charmaine.
all right. So, yes, we have Charmaine's contact information. She has ours. She will still be part of our network. As she mentioned, she's going to be reaching out to colleagues and contacts because of, the unique perspective that she has and expertise. We would love to recruit somebody who can kind of fill that in the board for us from the justice system, law enforcement, things like that. And so, yeah, we'll continue to pursue that. That being said, part of, our yearly goals that I send out, I'll just kind of mention briefly, very similar to last year, just kind of expanding upon 3 main goals. But one area of that is board recruitment and retention. And so I will send out an email to board members around reaching out to contacts. I think, it was our goal last year and we got to getting 7 board members. So we will officially vote on accepting Charmaine's resignation letter in November, so you don't have to be there for that, Charmaine. Thank you for sending that over, and attending this last meeting. We needed you for a quorum, so I really appreciate you coming to this last one. So right now, until we vote on her letter, a quorum is still 4. After we vote on that, our numbers will be down to 5, so our quorum will be down to 3. So that means that 2 board members can be gone from any particular meeting, and we'll still have a quorum. That concerns me a little bit going into January, February, March. As I said, like, I will be out during that time, so that's like an automatic 1 person down. So that leaves the space for another person to be down for a meeting. So I would really love to see if we could try to recruit somebody, and get them sworn in by December, just so that we have a little bit more wiggle room before then. And eventually kind of going towards the spring with a full 7 again, because that really was kind of a nice round number. It gave us a bit of flexibility for when folks have personal and work and other things come up during our meetings. And also to just kind of like distribute some of the burden of some of the committees and other activities. Oops. I updated our kind of 1-pager that defines the roles and kind of time commitments of a board member. I can send that out to the whole group again. So that way you can send it to any of your contacts, and we'll look for that. That ties into another board priority of our yearly training. As Beth mentioned in her report, we decided not to go forward with the November 14th training, just because there were several members who weren't able to attend. And it would be kind of nice if we prioritize maybe like around a March training or so, that we might have some new board members. And it's always great to do the yearly training with some new board members there. That way they kind of get acquainted with the group, like can ask questions, learn a lot of the basics, and not have to do kind of online training on their own, because that's not fun, not as effective. So that's kind of how we'll move forward from here, is like look for hopefully a Saturday training, including some other charter schools that would happen kind of mid-spring next year. Real quick updates on the strategic planning committee. We have been meeting with I'm so sorry, Beth, I'm like blanking on her name right now. Kiana, thank you. I was wanting to say Kiana, and had sort of an idea too of like one of the strategic planning goals that we can have, or action items under some of our goals, our priority areas, is becoming a little bit more visible, available to leadership staff and just the school in general. Like, that there's a lot of folks who maybe don't know that they can reach out to us and utilize us as a resource, as a mitigator in a lot of different situations. And we want to make sure the board is fulfilling that role. So that's something that we'll look at, like whether it's kind of information that's placed on the website, outreach to leadership and the school in general. And we've talked about, you all got a copy of our yearly goal plan, using that same format, but kind of expanding it out, that, we'll have the umbrella priority areas, but then several goals under each, and we'll work on incorporating those goals into kind of our yearly goals over the next 5 years. So that way they kind of align, and we're not necessarily creating new, goals year to year, that they all kind of fit together, and they fit together and support what the school and leadership are working on as well. So that's in process. We're going to utilize the information that Kiana is collecting now from the needs assessment. So a lot of that information will be available more in November. So it will kind of be that last month push to incorporate any important data pieces or concerns, if there's something that we haven't addressed that we need to make sure we're addressing in our goals for the next 5 years. So just know it's kind of nice, that timing of we aren't doing this in a silo, and we will be able to respond to what students, community, staff members are saying are their particular needs and priorities. As far as our yearly goals, we still have a few areas to kind of flesh out, including like timeframes, or if there are certain people responsible for certain areas. I think we are in a really good place. One of our top things as part of fulfilling those goals, though, will be the recruitment of a couple more board members. So that would be like our action item over the next like 2 months, is reach out to some contacts if you can. But otherwise, did anyone else have like comments or questions on either yearly goals or strategic planning? No. Okay. And then Beth, if you wouldn't mind pulling back up the agenda, we'll just take a quick look.
You start going.
One of the nice things I will kind of mention about our yearly goals is keeping up with academic outcomes. And part of that is reviewing data. And so we actually filled that in with our calendar of like when we look through data and data plans. And so part of that was even, reviewing the site visit data for this particular meeting. So that's kind of like a check for us. We are working on many of these goals as we go through our meetings. The other thing too is like the DASH and 90-day plans, so that then towards the end of the year, we can review how did those go. Those are all the things I had there. Reminders, next month on November 20th is our next board meeting. We do need to have 4 people there. I know hopefully Saban and Tina will be back to give us a little flexibility. So be on the lookout for Beth's kind of email and making sure we have a quorum before that meeting. And yeah, I'm not too worried. The bylaws, that's kind of something we can look at some point in time when it's quieter. Any
Whatever.
last comments or questions?
No.
All right. So do I have a motion to adjourn today's October 16th meeting?
I move to adjourn the October 16th, 2025 meeting.
Thank you, Deb. Do I have a second?
I second. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
thank you, Jody. And do I have all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And especially thank you to Charmaine. And we look forward to seeing you in other capacities in the future.
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
I'm
Charmaine.
always I'll be there for a while, not leaving anywhere. So if you need anything.
Sounds great.
Bye, everybody.
All right. We have adjourned today's meeting at 5:21 p.m. Take care, everyone.
As soon as we've adjourned, been a while.